By the sins of mankind was Mordheim cast into oblivion, a city judged and condemned by its own corruption. Once a thriving city of the Empire, it now stands in ruin, a twisted labyrinth of shattered edifices and desolate thoroughfares where darkness clings like a shroud. The divine wrath took the form of a twin-tailed comet, searing through the heavens to smite the city below, obliterating its grandeur in a cataclysmic blaze. Now known as the City of the Damned, Mordheim festers with malevolent forces, a haunting and ever-present reminder to the dire consequences of humanity's hubris and moral decay. Born to a lineage of devout Sigmarites, Alaric had dedicated his life to purging the taint of chaos from the Empire. Scars etched across his visage told tales of battles hard fought against heretics, mutants, and worse abominations that defied the natural order. His resolve was unyielding, and his faith as fire against the encroaching darkness. Yet, beneath the stern exterior lay a burden heavier than any he had borne before. Word had reached the Grand Theogenist of a sister of Sigmar who had lingered far too long within Mordheim's corrupted confines. Sister Elena, once revered for her piety and healing arts, was now shrouded in suspicion. Whispers spoke of her consorting with the very forces she had vowed to oppose. Her prolonged absence seen as a sign of her fall from grace. The Sisters of Sigmar, isolated and secretive since the city's destruction, were not above scrutiny. The Holy Order of the Templars of Sigmar had decreed that she be found and brought back to face judgment, a task entrusted to Alaric. It was not merely a mission, but an important duty to cleanse the Order of any impurity. The thought of a devout servant potentially succumbing to heresy was a stain that could not be ignored. So it was that Alaric prepared for his mission and departed, his destination, Mordheim, the City of the Damned. But before we go into Alaric's adventure and explore the perils that infest Mordheim's ruins, it's crucial to understand the catastrophe that befell the city. So let's take a brief look at the history of this cursed place. Mordheim, now known as the City of the Damned, was the former capital of the Ostermark province within the Empire. It was a mighty city that could rival many others, such as Nuln or even Altdorf. Nestled in the verdant valley of the River Ster, it was a bustling hub where merchants from distant lands convened, their caravans heavy with exotic wares and untold riches. The city's spires seemed to pierce the heavens, their gilded tips catching the sun's first light, while below, cobblestone streets echoed with the footsteps of nobles and commoners alike. Grand cathedrals dedicated to Sigmar and other deities towered over markets brimming with life. Artisans and scholars flocked to Mordheim, drawn by its reputation as a center of culture and learning. The great library housed tomes from every corner of the known world, and its university was renowned for their pursuit of knowledge in alchemy, astronomy, and the arcane arts. Festivals illuminated the city year-round, celebrating everything from the harvest to the changing of seasons. Each more lavish than the last, peace and prosperity reigned, and the citizens of Mordheim believed their city invincible, blessed by the gods themselves. Yet, hubris often walks hand in hand with downfall. As the year 1999 approached, whispers spread through taverns and royal courts alike. A comet loomed large overhead, and many eyes saw it. A prophecy foretold of a twin-tailed comet, a harbinger of doom or glory. This heavenly sight was embraced with fervent optimism. The citizens of Mordheim rejoiced, seeing it as a harbinger of renewed glory and divine favor. Some even said that it was a sign of the God King Sigmar's return. As rumors of the comet's significance spread throughout the Empire, waves of pilgrims, devotees, and opportunists journeyed to the city. They came seeking blessings, salvation, or a chance to witness the dawn of a new golden age. Mordheim burgeoned with these newcomers, its streets overflowing with hopeful souls united by the promise of a brighter future, all blissfully unaware of the darkness that the comet would truly bring. But beneath the veneer of celebration, Mordheim's soul had begun to rot. Greed and decadence slowly gripped the souls and minds of the city, while secret cults dedicated to dark gods sowed seeds of corruption as Mordheim's population grew by the day. The influx of pilgrims and fortune seekers strained the city's resources, and the once harmonious society began to fracture. Greed and decadence took root in the hearts of many, eroding the moral fabric that had held Mordheim together. The noble houses, once paragons of leadership and virtue, descended into rivalry and avarice. Lavish feasts and opulent displays became stages for subtle wars of influence. Alliances shifted like sand, sealed with hollow promises and broken just as swiftly. Assassinations and whispered scandals became the tools of ambition, as each house sought to outmaneuver the others for prestige and power. Secret cults dedicated to dark gods found fertile ground. Disillusioned commoners and disaffected nobles alike were drawn into their clandestine circles, enticed by forbidden knowledge and the promise of power beyond the mortal grasp. In shadowed alleyways and hidden chambers beneath the city, these cults performed unspeakable rites, seeking to undermine the worship of Sigmar and pave the way for their malevolent deities. The swelling population only exacerbated the city's descent. With each new arrival, resources grew scarcer and tensions flared. Crime rates soared as desperation led to theft and violence. The city watch was overwhelmed, unable to maintain order amidst the chaos. Plagues of vice gambling, dens, illicit substances, and forbidden pleasures spread unchecked, offering fleeting escapes from the mounting despair. Thus, while the citizens of Mordheim danced and sang in anticipation of a glorious future, darkness tightened its grip. The city's soul was tarnished, its foundations weakened by corruption and strife. Unbeknownst to its inhabitants, Mordheim teetered on the brink, poised for a fall that would shatter not only stone and steel, but the very essence of hope within the Empire. On the fateful night when the comet blazed across the sky, its brilliance turned night into day. The citizens gathered in the grand plaza, eyes lifted in awe and anticipation. Cheers turned to screams as the comet grew larger, its descent undeniable. With a cataclysmic roar, it struck the heart of Mordheim, unleashing a torrent of destruction. Buildings crumbled, and fires raged unchecked, consuming wood and stone, flesh and bone. Those not killed by the impact faced worse fates, as the mysterious shards of the comet warpstone littered the ruins, emanating a malevolent energy. In the aftermath, Mordheim was unrecognizable, a charred skeleton of its former glory. The once great city had become a mausoleum, its streets haunted by the shadows of the damned. Survivors were twisted beyond recognition, both in body and mind, as the warpstone's corrupting influence spread like a plague. As the days passed and the news from the destruction of the city spread like wildfire through the Empire and beyond, tales of madness, mutation, and monstrosities emerged, and the name Mordheim became a curse whispered in fear. But where death and ruin reigned, so too did opportunity. Rumors of the Warpstone's power lured the brave, the foolish, and the desperate. Warbands from all corners of the Empire and beyond descended upon the smouldering remains, each seeking fortune or to serve their own dark purposes. Unbeknownst to them, they would find not only the promised riches, but also the inexorable pool of chaos that had claimed Mordheim as its own. Now it is a dead city, where only the foolish, mad, or greedy seek to venture forth, either to plunder the riches of the ruins or to covet the green shards of comet-borne warpstone that lace the entire city with its corruption. Understanding the manner of Mordheim's destruction is crucial, for it was this cataclysmic event that birthed the many dangers lurking within its ruins today. The impact not only obliterated the city, but also tore a rift between the mortal realm and the chaotic energies of the warp, giving rise to horrors beyond description. It is this nexus of corruption that continues to fester, drawing in the desperate and the damned. Yet not all who brave this cursed place are mad or desperate. Some enter Mordheim with a resolute purpose, driven by important missions and unwavering intent. The chill wind whispered through the road, carrying with it the scent of ash and distant decay. Clad in a weathered long coat and wide-brimmed hat, shadowing piercing eyes, Alaric von Fell was a somber figure against the desolate landscape leading to Mordheim, the accursed city of the damned. As Alaric approached the outskirts of Mordheim, he could feel the malevolent energy seeping from its ruins. The very air was thick with the warpstone's taint, a cloying miasma that gnawed at the edges of sanity. Shadows moved unnaturally among the skeletal remains of buildings, and distant echoes hinted at unspeakable horrors lurking within. His purpose was clear: to find Sister Elena, ascertain the truth of her alleged heresy, and deliver her to the justice of the Order, whether she was a lost soul in need of salvation or a traitor consorting with darkness. Alaric was prepared to do what was necessary. The path ahead was fraught with peril, not only from the monstrosities that infested Mordheim, but from the insidious corruption that could sway even the strongest of wills. Drawing his pistol and readying his blessed sword, Alaric muttered a prayer to Sigmar. The stakes were high, but his conviction was strong. Into the heart of damnation he ventured, guided by duty and armed with years of training and unshakable faith. As Alaric stepped across the threshold of Mordheim's shattered gates, the full weight of the city's desolation pressed upon him. The cobblestone streets were fractured and uneven, littered with the rubble of once grand buildings now reduced to skeletal remains. Jagged spires leaned at precarious angles, threatening to collapse with the slightest disturbance. Every structure bore the scars of the cataclysm, their walls cracked, their foundations unstable. Navigating this labyrinth of ruin required utmost caution. One misstep could send a cascade of debris tumbling down or plunge him into a hidden chasm beneath the streets. Scattered among the wreckage, faintly glowing shards caught Alaric's eye. He recognized them instantly as warpstone, the corrupting remnants of the comet that had doomed the city. Warpstone is a substance of pure chaos energy, solidified into darkly shimmering crystals. It is highly unstable and incredibly dangerous. It corrupts and mutates any living organism it touches, twisting flesh and mind into unnatural forms. It can contaminate the environment, poison the air and water, and even alter reality itself within its vicinity. While some unscrupulous individuals and malevolent creatures like the Skaven covet Warpstone for its potent magical properties, for most it represents a source of profound peril and corruption. The eerie greenish luminescence pulsed with a malevolent energy, casting unnatural shadows that seemed to dance at the edges of his vision. He knew that even the slightest contact with Warpstone could be perilous. The very air tainted by its presence, carrying a metallic tang that lingered in the back of his throat. Alaric pulled his scarf tighter over his mouth and nose, aware that prolonged exposure could lead to debilitating sickness or hallucinations. Already he could feel the insidious tendrils of the city's ambient chaos gnawing at the edges of his consciousness, subtle whispers that urged doubt or despair. He steadied himself, reciting litanies of protection under his breath to ward off the psychological corruption that had driven so many before him to madness. Navigating the treacherous streets of Mordheim, Alaric moved with caution. The oppressive silence was broken only by the distant drip of water and the unsettling rustle of debris shifting in the shadows. The convent of the Sisters of Sigmar is located on Sigmar's Rock, at the heart of the devastated city. Additionally, he was actively searching for any sign of Sister Elena, clues, markings, anything that could lead him to her amidst this labyrinth of ruin. From the corner of his eye, Alaric caught a flicker of movement. Before he could react, a chittering hiss echoed around him. Skaven emerged from the shadows, sleek, fur-matted bodies with glinting eyes and sharp fangs. They moved with unnerving agility, crude weapons clutched in clawed hands. Their armor was a patchwork of scavenged materials, and the stench of rot and warpstone clung to them. Alaric drew his pistol and sword in a fluid motion, the blessed silver of his blade gleaming even in the dim light.
"By Sigmar's light, back to the shadows with you!"
he commanded, steadying his aim. The Skaven were unfazed, it seemed. They circled him. One lunged forward, his rusty weapon thrusting toward Alaric's side. He parried with his sword, the clash of metal ringing out. He fired his pistol at another approaching from behind, the shot tearing through its chest in a spray of dark blood. Suddenly, the group of rat men were all over him. The Skaven moved with frenetic energy, their attacks erratic yet dangerous still. Alaric's years of combat training were tested as he weaved between their strikes. As he fought, he invoked prayers under his breath, each word steeling his resolve against the vermintide. Amidst the chaos, he noticed that the Skaven were not merely attacking, they were herding him. They sought to drive him deeper into the ruins, perhaps toward a nest or a trap. He needed to end this fight quickly or escape. With a swift kick, he marked his boot into the face of an advancing Skaven, buying himself a moment to assess his surroundings. Spotting a narrow passage between two fallen structures, he fought his way toward it. The confined space would prevent the Skaven from overwhelming him with numbers. Squeezing through the gap, he heard the furious screeches of his pursuers. Thinking quickly, Alaric spotted a weakened archway. As the first Skaven scrambled through the passage behind him, he fired at the keystone. The structure groaned before collapsing in a cloud of dust and rubble, blocking the path and halting the immediate pursuit. Breathing heavily, Alaric took a moment to regain his composure. Fighting the rat men would not give him any gains, so shortly after he moved on, before the Skaven could find another way to get at him again. The encounter had been an example of the dangers that lurked in Mordheim. Not just the environment, but the malevolent beings drawn to its corrupted heart. Navigating cautiously through the maze of rubble and ruin, Alaric pressed onward, his senses honed to the slightest disturbance. The oppressive silence of Mordheim was punctuated only by the distant creak of shifting structures and the occasional scurrying of unseen vermin. The encounter with the Skaven had sharpened his vigilance, yet the pursuers had been lost by then. As he skirted the edge of a collapsed tavern, something caught his eye. A flicker of movement against a stagnant backdrop. Peering from behind a fractured wall, he spotted a lone figure traversing the debris-strewn street not too far away. Clad in tattered robes emblazoned with blasphemous symbols, the man moved with a furtive urgency, clutching a weathered satchel to his chest. Alaric recognized the markings. A cultist of chaos, seemingly all by himself. This could be the opportunity he needed. Silently, Alaric began to follow, keeping to the shadows and matching the cultist's pace with practiced stealth. Like a lion silently approaching his prey. Alaric noticed the path carefully, committing landmarks to memory in case he needed to retrace his steps in haste. As he entered a narrow passage flanked by skeletal remains of two buildings, he decided it was time to make his move. Quickening his pace, Alaric closed the distance between them. A loose stone shifted under his boot, the slight noise causing the cultist to whirl around, eyes wide with alarm. Before the man could react further, Alaric lunged forward, delivering a swift strike to disarm him. The cultist stumbled back, drawing a rusty dagger from beneath his robes.
Who dares interfere with the will of the Dark Ones?
The cultist spat, his voice a raspy snarl. The cultist sneered, his eyes flickering with fanatic zeal. With a defiant cry, he lunged forward, dagger poised to strike. Alaric sidestepped the clumsy attack with ease, bringing the hilt of his sword down upon the wrist of the cultist. The dagger clattered to the ground. Seizing the advantage, Alaric delivered a calculated slash across the man's thigh. Not deep enough to be fatal, but sufficient to incapacitate. The cultist collapsed to one knee, clutching his wound in pain. Blood seeped through his fingers, darkening the filthy fabric of his robe. Alaric confronted the cultist, who remained defiant despite his wounds, and refused to divulge any information about the Sisters of Sigmar. Accepting the futility of interrogation, Alaric bound the man's hand securely. Searching the cultist's satchel, he uncovered a weathered journal filled with cryptic notes and unholy symbols. Among the entries, one detailed an imminent assault on a refuge presumably used by the Sisters, mentioning landmarks that Alaric recognized from Mordheim's pre-cataclysmic layout. Realizing the urgency, the witch hunter knew he had to reach the Sisters before the cultists launched their attack. Leaving the cultist restrained, he set off toward the indicated location. The path ahead led deeper into the corrupted city, through areas likely teeming with peril. The oppressive atmosphere seemed to thicken as he advanced, but the information he had gained fortified his resolve. As mentioned before, it is known that the Sisters of Sigmar mostly reside in their convent situated on Sigmar's Rock, in the center of the city, and that was the place Alaric was going to look out for first. But with the new information, the marked location seemed more urgent, and if he could not find Sister Elena there, then he could always go to the convent to find further clues. And so, with a new direction, he moved on. Over the course of 2 arduous days, Alaric carefully navigated the treacherous streets of Mordheim. He meticulously avoided areas heavy with warpstone contamination, resting only in the most secure nooks he could find amid the ruins. By staying vigilant and steering clear of roaming warbands, he managed to preserve his strength for the mission ahead. Finally, he reached the hidden sanctuary of the Sisters of Sigmar, arriving shortly before the cultists' anticipated attack. As Alaric neared the place, he approached with deliberate caution, fully aware of their mistrust towards outsiders. Halting at a respectful distance, he raised his Sigmarite medallion, allowing the hammer emblem to catch the light, a clear sign of his allegiance. The Sisters emerged from concealed positions among the ruins, their weapons poised but aggression held in check upon seeing the familiar symbol. Their eyes scrutinized him intently, searching for any sign of deceit or corruption. The air was thick with tension, a silent standoff between steadfast guardians and a solitary intruder. To further ease their suspicions, Alaric produced the sealed letter bearing the Grand Theogenist's seal, and presented the cultist's journal detailing the impending attack. The Sisters exchanged cautious glances as they examined the documents, but couldn't ignore the gravity of his warning. Among them stood Sister Elena, untainted by any visible corruption. Approaching her, Alaric presented the sealed letter from the capital.
You are needed in Aldor for questioning.
Elena read the missive silently, her expression thoughtful.
I understand the summons and I will accompany you. However, I cannot abandon my sisters on the eve of battle. My duty compels me to stand with them. Once we face this threat together, I will go with you willingly.
Alaric emphasized that the defenses were strong, and that the information he had provided would significantly improve their chances. He urged her to depart immediately while the path remained clear. Despite his reasoning, Elena remained resolute. Recognizing her unwavering determination, Alaric realized he had little choice. Forcing her to leave might jeopardize the trust he had just established. He agreed to assist in the defense, stipulating that they must depart as soon as the conflict concluded. Alaric and the sisters worked side by side, reinforcing barricades and strategizing for the battle ahead. Despite the looming danger, a sense of solidarity settled over the group. Alaric noted the unwavering faith and discipline of the sisters, qualities that rekindled a spark of hope within the grim surroundings. While they were preparing defenses, Elena met Alaric's gaze and she spoke.
We, the Sisters of Sigmar, remain here in this cursed place to stand against the corruption that seeps from the Warpstone. Our mission is to contain the spread of chaos by recovering and securing dangerous artifacts, providing sanctuary to untainted survivors, and offering prayers to cleanse the city of its malevolence. We do not stay for our own sake, but to protect the Empire from the insidious forces that threatens to spill beyond these ruins. By upholding our sacred duties amid this devastation, we aim to be a sign of hope in the face of overwhelming darkness.
Elena's gaze grew distant as she continued speaking.
I understand the concerns that revolve around me, yet it was not me who succumbed to chaos, but Sister Superior Iralda. She was an example among us, well versed in our sacred rituals, and a mentor to the younger sisters and novices. When we heard whispers of a chaos cult performing dark rites in a ruined church, she took it upon herself to investigate. When she didn't return, we searched desperately for 2 days. We found her, but she was changed in mind and spirit, speaking in twisted tongues, uttering prophecies of doom and a fire so vast it would engulf the world. Despite our efforts to bring her back to herself, she remained lost to us. In the end, we had no choice but to release her from her torment. What horrors she endured, what revelation she saw to break herself into that. What was done to her during captivity remains a terrifying mystery that haunts us still.
As the shadows lengthened, signaling the approach of night, everyone took their positions. The stage was set for the confrontation, each participant steeling themselves in preparation. Alaric stood ready and his purpose clear, to face the common enemy alongside Sister Elena and thereafter ensure her safe passage to the capital. 2 weeks had passed since the harrowing night in Mordheim. Alaric von Feld stood within the austere chamber of the Grand Cathedral in Altdorf, the heart of the Sigmarite faith. Sunlight filtered through stained-glass windows, casting vibrant patterns on the stone floor as he prepared to present his report to the Grand Theogenist. Unfurling a sealed parchment, Alaric began to recount the events of that fateful night.
Honored Lord,
He addressed the Grand Theogenist, his voice steady yet solemn.
I write to inform you of the findings from my mission concerning Sister Elena of the Sisters of Sigmar.
He detailed his arrival at the Sisters' Sanctuary, emphasizing how he found Sister Elena untainted by any form of heresy or corruption.
Sister Elena demonstrated unwavering faith and a profound commitment to our cause. Her demeanor and actions were those of a devout servant of Sigmar, with no indication of allegiance to chaos. Under the cloak of darkness, the cultists assailed the sanctuary with overwhelming force. Their numbers far exceeded our own, threatening to breach our defenses. During the fiercest moments of the assault, one of our flanks began to crumble under their relentless pressure.
He paused, recalling the courage he had witnessed.
Recognizing the imminent danger, Sister Elena took it upon herself to defend a narrow passageway that led directly into our stronghold. Positioning herself at this choke point, she engaged the enemy head-on. The confined space nullified their numerical advantage, allowing her to hold them at bay. Her selfless actions provided us with the critical time needed to regroup and fortify our remaining defenses. Inspired by her bravery, we were able to repel the attackers and ultimately force them into retreat. The battle was won, but not without sacrifice. Several sisters, including Sister Elena, gave their lives to protect the sanctuary and uphold the light of Sigmar. Sister Elena's valor on the battlefield was unparalleled. She fought with a fervor that could only come with true faith.
Alaric continued.
In light of these events, I attest to Sister Elena's innocence regarding any accusation of heresy. Her final actions were those of a true devotee, committed to thwarting the forces of chaos at all costs. Furthermore, the Sisters of Sigmar have proven themselves to be a vital bastion against the encroaching darkness within Mordheim.
In concluding his letter, Alaric added a solemn note regarding the ongoing peril in Mordheim.
Furthermore, I must bring to your attention a grave concern. The Chaos cults entrenched within Mordheim continue to pose a significant threat, their influence spreading slowly but surely. Disturbingly, they succeeded in corrupting Sister Superior Eralda, a figure once renowned for her wisdom and unwavering faith. Captured during a mission to investigate rumored cult activities, she was rescued by the sisters after 2 days, but was profoundly changed. She spoke in twisted tongues and uttered ominous prophecies of a great calamity. Despite their earnest efforts to restore her, the sisters were compelled to release her from her suffering. The insidious reach of chaos within the city is alarming, and in my opinion, it highlights the urgent need for continued vigilance and support for those who stand against it. This is my report. Yours truly, Alaric von Feld.
He sealed the letter with the insignia of his office, ensuring its authenticity. Having delivered his account, Alaric left the chamber. As he did so, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had fulfilled his duty, not only by completing his mission, but by honoring the memory of Sister Elena and her fellow sisters. Their sacrifice had not been in vain, and their story would strengthen the resolve of those who continue the fight against the shadows threatening their world.